What is up, my dashing dudes? I am the Hans TV, and I know that y'all like these entitled posts, so let's keep rolling with it. We're diving back in to r/entitled parents. Our first post for the day comes from Dover75. I'm your father and have to pay child support for you, so I can treat you however I want. Sorry, typed it on phone, so not the best format. Tried separating the different kind of parts of the story into paragraphs and titled the rest. Cast. Dad equals entitled dick. SM equals stepmom who's batshit crazy / gold digger story for another time. Mom equals amazing mom. OS is older sis, same mom. MS is middle sister, oldest daughter of my dad and stepmom. YS, youngest of the four of us, again stepmom's daughter with my dad. And me, why I wrote this. So, I'm visiting my mom for the weekend and, well, old memories came back up. Probably why my old home I grew up in doesn't feel like home. I'm 26 male now and moved out for college when I was 18 and have lived on my own for years now. Present day events. Also, before I get into all of these memories, I want to clarify a couple of things. My dad was an entitled dick growing up, but recently, probably because of his new wife, whom he cheated on my mom with and the reason why my mom divorced him when I was 1, my stepmom left my dad for a doctor who, let's just say, is paying for my two little sisters to go to any college they choose when the time comes. So he has started to realize that he's lonely and has no one because, well, he wasn't really a good dad to me or older sister. He was, however, a great one to middle sister and younger sister, which was great because, yay. Glad he didn't treat them like older sister and I, but also hurt because why could he show us that affection? I digress. Anyway, now that he's alone, he realized he messed up and has tried to make amends with older sister and I, and we have at least a somewhat decent relationship now. Story. So, growing up, raised by my single mom, which was difficult as it is for every single mom, she made the best of it. My dad, however, was a different story. Side note, my mom refused to influence older sister and I's opinion of our dad and allowed us to make our own decisions and opinions about our dad. She wanted us to choose to either see him or not on our own. My dad was the type that felt like older sister and I were made for him to have free labor whenever we visited him, either chopping wood, helping build something new around his house. He's a carpenter / woodwork. My dad also liked to act like he was paying us for doing these things by buying me a new Xbox 360 when it came out. Only it couldn't leave his place, so if I wanted to play, I had to go see him and do more free labor. He would also have us clean the house and babysit, which I didn't mind because they are my little sisters and I love them, but would suck because if I just wanted to kick back and play some games, I had to play theirs, and I am 7 years older than middle sister, so I didn't want to play kids games, but would because if I didn't, they would tell dad I was being mean or calling them names and I would be punished equals abused physically or emotionally. He would also take me to work with him, moving decking boards and other manual labor that he would pay middle sister and younger sister for, but not me nor older sister. So yeah, a little salty about that. His reasoning behind not paying us an allowance like the two younger ones was, well, I'm paying child support, so that makes it even. He didn't pay child support for the first 13 years of my life, and then threatened to file for custody of me if my mom wouldn't sign off saying it's forgiving, which my mom, being the saint that she is, didn't want me to have to go to court to settle that matter, so she did. The other thing about my dad is that one time he had me clean his car and, well, I dropped the rag, then cleaned it off because figured grass might scratch his car. He started yelling at me for making that mistake because I could have scratched his car. Called it. Knowing that I'm about to be punished, I just try to run inside, and as I'm doing such, I yell, "I'm calling my mom, I want to go home." He comes running up behind me and picks me up in a chokehold. I was 12, throws me in a corner and says that he's my father and is entitled to punish me how he pleases, and that he doesn't need my mom's help. After yelling at me for about an hour and a half, and by yelling I mean throwing insults, calling me worthless, blah blah blah, he finally lets me go, so I go back to my mom's and never said anything other than I never want to see him again. So what do? For about a year I would get home from school and call him. On days I'm supposed to see him for his custody or whatever, I would call and say, "Don't come get me," and tell stepmother not to either. Then, an hour later, stepmom shows up, which it's 20 minutes from his place to mom's, and would try to guilt me into going over by saying she's already here and already used the gas money and they need my help. I slammed the door in her face, which usually ended with her calling Dad and him yelling at me over the phone till I would hang up and slam the door again. After a year, best year of my life growing up, I finally decided to give him another shot at redeeming himself. Big mistake. He sat down and talked to me about why I don't want to live with him and he wants me to live with him. And it's really nice there, blah blah blah. This took place months before I found out he wasn't paying child support. I finally snapped and told him exactly why I refused to live with him. I called him an entitled asshole who needed to grow the fuck up because at times his 13-year-old son was more mature than him. Then I looked at stepmom and called her crazy and said that she could never be half the mother that my mom is. This pissed him off to a new level, probably because I ruined his plan at never having to pay child support and getting free labor. So he snapped and just said, "If that's how you feel, bring up the papers and I'll sign away my rights to you as a father." In just a cold, serious tone. I was 13. Who says that to their 13-year-old son? I lost it and had my mom come pick me up, and I told her what happened. To this day, she still believes that he only wanted me to live with him so they could save on the child support. TLDR. In summary, my dad was an abusive because he was entitled to treat me however he pleased because he paid child support and was my dad. Then, karma bit him in the ass, and now fixing his mistakes is a bitch. Funny note. Also, finally note, his parents took me on a 3-week trip across the country and had an amazing time, but eventually I told them everything my dad did, and they tore him a new one. Also, and probably one of my favorite moments from his parents, at my sister's college grad party, my dad says to my mom, "We did a good job." His own mother replies, "We? She did a good job," and pointed at my mom, giving her all the credit for how older sister and I have turned out. Edit. Thank you all for your support, and for those that have chosen to open up to me about your situation, I'm trying to respond the best that I can, and I'm just happy to see people open up about their situations that are similar. That's why I wrote this post. It's also to show people that things can get better. Our next post comes from Acronymical. Entitled father breaks into my home because his son wants a bigger home. Who everybody is. EF, entitled father. PK, that hell spawn. Me, subatomic particle. I recently moved to a new house, a nice house that everybody wanted. I went around to introduce myself, and everybody's nice, calm, and someone you'd want to hang out with, except for one, and that one was an entitled family. I knock on their door, and here's how we met. Entitled father, read that? No soliciting. Me, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. Entitled father, sure, you're trying to sell something. Me, I'm your new neighbor in that one house for sale. Entitled father, that was my son's dream home. Sell it now. Me, as they say, you snooze, you lose. But there's better houses out there. Entitled father, no. The entitled father slams the door. Me, pleasant neighbor, geez. As I'm setting up my stuff, I hear walking downstairs. I thought of 5 things. 1. My girlfriend, oddly enough, had a key to the house. 2. I'm hearing things again. 3. It's still open house. 4. Somebody broke in. And 5. I left the door open on accident. Can you guess what it was? Yep, it was 4. I proceed to check my security camera footage, and sure enough, that father with his son are inside my house. I get my pellet gun, load it up, you never know what happens, and proceeds to go downstairs. Me, what are you doing? Entitled father, this is my house now. I proceed to pull out my pellet gun. Me, get out or you'll end up like the ducks. Entitled father, what does that mean? PK, he means that he hunts ducks. I get it's my dream home, but let's just stay out of trouble. Me, your kid's right. Don't break in my house again. And that's how my new house almost got stolen. Remember, security matters. If anyone breaks in, break out the pellet gun. As I was going through the comments on this thread, I'm just noticing that everyone's like, that happened. Are you sure that happened? And I agree. This sounds so fake, just like the way that the story flows and everything. No. So I believe that this belongs in r/that happened. Our final post for the day comes from Daravit3119. Karen threatens to report me to the school for not chaperoning a school trip my son wasn't going on. Context. I'm from Switzerland. I currently live in German-speaking part of Switzerland. I was raised trilingual English, French, and German because my dad comes from the UK, My mom comes from Geneva, a French-speaking canton, and I was raised in Zurich, which speaks German. I decided to raise my son trilingual as well, and my sister and her kids live in a French-speaking part of Switzerland, which means that they had plenty of chances to practice his French. Swiss schools are required to teach all kids English, but at least one other language of Switzerland other than their native language. Since my son already spoke fluent French, he decided to take Italian like I did at his age, instead of wasting his time learning a language he was already fluent in. This year, there were school trips to the country where your language is spoken. French learners went to France, Italian learners went to Italy, Romish learners were the only ones who didn't leave Switzerland. Anyway, on to the story at hand. I was picking up my son from school and was talking to some of the other parents in the schoolyard when Karen appeared. I don't really talk to her very often. She usually hangs around the other side of the schoolyard, and our children know each other but aren't really friends. The following conversation ensues. Karen, will you be coming on the France trip in a few weeks? Me, no, I have work that week, and my son is in the Italian class, so I'm gonna chaperone the Italy trip. Karen, why don't you want to supervise the France trip as well? Me, 'cause I have work that week. Karen, well, I don't speak French, but I want to go out after the kids are asleep. I was hoping you'd come so you could translate things for me. Me, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. You probably shouldn't be chaperoning a French trip if you don't speak French, and you really shouldn't be drinking. I mean, seriously, I thought the whole point of adult chaperones was so they could get kids out of situations they couldn't get themselves out of. How could they do that if they didn't speak the language of the country they were in, and they were faced on wine? Karen, it's a France trip. You've gotta drink wine. What sort of France trip doesn't have wine in it? Me, one for children. I think Karen got the message because she sort of drifted off. It wasn't too abrupt, so it didn't appear rude or anything, but she didn't stick around long after that. The next day was a Friday, so my son had his best friend around to play some video games after school, and my son's friend told me that she freaked out. She and my son's friend mom are really good friends, and she came over after school that day, fuming that I wouldn't be her personal translator for the weekend while she got drunk, talking about reporting me to the school for being so disrespectful. I assume she means the "one for the children" comment, but it's a Karen. She might just mean me not helping her. What she thought the school was going to do is beyond me. I thought about telling the school there were 3 witnesses, but then my son's friend told me that his parents had already done it. Apparently, they were horrified that someone who was going to be watching their son would be drinking on the job, and they reported it the very next morning. Apparently, she told the school she spoke perfect French to get put on the trip. She's no longer chaperoning the trip, and all those kids are safer for it. Edit. Realized that it's spelled Romansh in English and not Romansh. Well, alright, my dashing dudes. That is going to do it for today's episode of r/EntitledParents. I hope that y'all like the stories. If you did, I'll link them down in the description as always. If you like the video, go ahead and drop a like, a subscribe, and a comment down below with what you'd like to see me read next. A humongous thank you to everyone who has subscribed in the past few weeks. I am so honored to have you guys join my dashing dudes. You're making the family grow. But with that being said, I will see you in the next video.